Each year, we have a special assembly for seniors only, and it's for the distinguished alumni who are being inducted into our ranks of distinguished alumni here at ETHS. Again, in a minute, you're going to hear a little bit more about it, but let me explain this convocation just for a moment to you. We wait until your senior year for you to participate in this. It's a big deal. It's a really important event. And we wait until your senior year because you are on the threshold of becoming alumni yourselves. You're on the threshold of heading out into the world and really taking the next steps to make your mark in this world. What you're going to hear today, or you're going to hear about and from 5 alumni who graduated, some in the 60s, the 70s, and the 90s, who walked these halls just as you do today and just as you have for your past 4 years. You're going to hear from 5 people who went out from ETHS and distinguished themselves in their lives and in their careers. And I think you're going to be really pleased to hear what somebody from ETHS, Wild Kits, people who've worn the orange and blue, have gone out of this school and accomplished. In my own mind, I really have no doubts that we have sitting in this room some people who will someday be inducted into the distinguished alumni and be on this same stage talking to students in the future. I also know that while not all of us get that honor, there are going to be a whole room full of distinguished alums heading out into the world because I watch you every day and I recognize what you achieve here and what you're capable of achieving in your lives. So here's my appeal or word to you this morning. Please, let's be a really attentive and polite audience. Let's really give our attention to these fine people. And let's remember that we're not their guests, they are our guests. And we're hosting them today, and let's show them Wild Kit pride. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. David Futransky, who is the Executive Director of our Alumni Association. Mr. Futransky.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Good morning. I'm David Futransky. I am the Executive Director of our Alumni Association. I am a member of the ETHS class of 1969, and I am a former history teacher here. I have the privilege every year of working with a committee to put this program together. You've got a program. Inside of the program book, it lists the committee members. Students on the committee, some of whom are up here speaking to you today, did a lot of work in reviewing nominations, in selecting the people who are here. There are over 50,000 living ETHS alumni walking around this world. This is the 15th group that we've brought into the Distinguished Alumni Award. It's less than 75 people. 75 people out of 50,000 living and probably another 20,000 who predeceased them. That's a very elite group of people that we've selected. That we've elected to receive this award over the years. You join us. You all become alumni in June after graduation. You will be hearing from us. We ask that you try to keep in touch with us. You're going to get information from us in the spring about how to send us your future email addresses. You're going to get a newsletter from us twice a year. We hope you will keep in touch and keep coming back and staying in touch, because once you're a Wild Kit, you're always a Wild Kit. When you look through your program and you see the people listed in the back, you can put them in 3 categories. We have people who have had success and impact on their local communities. We have people with national impact, and we have people with global impact. Today we have examples of all of that. I'm going to introduce a classmate of mine to you who's going to welcome this group into the Distinguished Alumni Hall. They are, there will be plaques, and I think you remember plaques outside of the superintendent's office. If we redecorate Heritage Hall, down at the west end of Heritage Hall, all of the plaques of all of the honorees will be up when you come back from winter break. One of those plaques is for a classmate of mine who served ETHS as its principal and retired about 10 years ago. Denise Martin is a good friend and truly a distinguished alumni. Please welcome her back.
Good morning. Good morning. All right. I want to make sure the class of 2017 is awake and ready. All right. It is my pleasure as a member of the 2008 group of distinguished alumni to welcome the newest members to our ranks. Today you will hear about 5 extraordinary men and women who have made a significant impact in their fields. You will hear a lot about their accomplishments, but I am here to welcome each individual to ETHS. First, Steve Guilford. Steve is behind me. Steve was actually my boss for a while as a member of the ETHS school board. He is a senior law partner who has a passion for underrepresented groups. He has been a beacon for change in our community. Thank you, Steve. Tanika Island Childress, she's behind me. Given her excellent exposure at ETHS, she has become recognized as an educational leader. Your efforts are appreciated. Thank you. Greg Caliber has been a major community supporter and hero as an Evanston firefighter. Thank you for putting yourself in danger to help others. Megan Toohey, over here, is a journalist who has had a profound effect on uncovering misdeeds and political stories. We appreciate your exposure of the truth. And of course, last but not least, Lynn Williams Twist, over here, is a humanitarian, a visionary, an advocate for social justice. Her efforts have yielded significant improvements in the lives of others. Thank you for your compassion and turning that into action. I have one more. I welcome you all to this mighty group of ETHS graduates and know that one day, many of you in this class will be candidates for this award. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Moore, and I'm currently the senior class president. As the world is becoming more and more interested in social justice issues, many people struggle with ways to contribute positively to the conversation. This year's first Distinguished Alumni Award winner, Megan Toohey, has helped bring about change through her career as an award-winning journalist. She works every day with the intentions to expose injustice, hold the powerful accountable, and give voice to the voiceless. Growing up in Evanston, Ms. Toohey attended Orrington and then went on to Haven. When she got to ETHS, she played on the girls' tennis and softball teams. Ms. Toohey credits her freshman humanities teacher, Dennis Dowd, for teaching her one of the most important pillars of journalism, accuracy. Evanston's academically rigorous courses and top-notch teachers, including Mr. Dowd and mathematics teacher Samuel Bazil, helped Ms. Toohey develop as a diligent student and critical thinker. She graduated from Georgetown University with a degree in American Studies and began working in journalism following in the footsteps of her parents. Ms. Toohey started off her journalism career as an editorial intern at a magazine in Washington, D.C. She then worked as a reporter at several newspapers. During her time with the Chicago Tribune, her focus shifted to investigative reporting. Her stories led to criminal convictions, new state laws, and other reforms in Illinois. Later, as a reporter with the international news organization Reuters, she became a Pulitzer Prize finalist for her articles exposing the rehoming of adoptive children. This series was so highly regarded that she was honored by President Obama at the White House. Ms. Toohey currently works as an investigative reporter with the New York Times. She wrote articles about many of the presidential candidates and worked on several of the most widely read articles during the campaign, about Donald Trump's treatment of women and about records showing that he likely didn't pay income taxes for more than 15 years. Mr. Trump was so upset about one of the articles that he yelled at Ms. Toohey over the phone and complained about her on Twitter. Although she faced backlash, Ms. Toohey was doing what she set out to do, report the truth. Even though people in Evanston do not live in complete harmony, Ms. Toohey credits the diversity in helping to spark her awareness of the world. Her passion for justice and drive to obtain the facts in her investigations keep her motivated to find that next big lead. When questioning how you can make a difference in this changing world, follow Ms. Toohey's example of using your passion as a platform. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ms. Megan Toohey.
Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. I haven't been back in this auditorium in over 25 years. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the Donald Trump encounter this morning. And it was late one night in October, and my colleagues and I at the New York Times were frantically working to finish a big story. Days earlier, Donald Trump had been caught on an Access Hollywood tape bragging about how he kissed and groped women without their consent. Then, in the presidential debate, when asked about the recording, he was insistent. Yes, he had said those crude comments, but no, he had never engaged in actual behavior of that kind in real life. My story gave voice to two women who claimed otherwise. One woman said Donald Trump had groped her on a plane, that he had tried to grab her breasts and put his hand up her skirt. Another woman said he had given her a non-consensual kiss on the mouth during a chance encounter at his office building. I had documented their claims in meticulous detail, but before we published, I needed to get comment from Trump himself. I submitted written questions to his campaign team and waited to hear back. At 9 p.m., with the deadline looming and my editors breathing down my neck, my cell phone rang. Much to my surprise, it was Trump himself, and he was on the offense. He accused the New York Times of fabricating the allegations to make him look bad. He threatened to sue the paper if we published the story. And as I pushed forward with questions, the presidential candidate got increasingly angry. His attacks got personal. Eventually, he started yelling at me. "You're disgusting," he shouted. "You're a disgusting human being." It was an unforgettable moment in an unforgettable story. I finished the interview, we published the article, and it turned out to be the tip of the iceberg. In the following days, more than 10 women stepped forward to share similar stories about unwelcome sexual advances from Trump. It became one of the most controversial issues in the final days of the presidential campaign. And many readers were shocked that Trump had personally attacked me during the interview, including Hillary Clinton, who brought it up in the final debate. Friends, colleagues, and others wanted to know how I had handled his aggression. Did I feel threatened? Was I scared? The short answer, no. In my nearly 20 years of journalism, I've benefited from a toughness, a grit, a determination that I trace back to this very building, to my years attending Evanston High School. Those traits were cultivated in some of the challenging, competitive classes I took during my time here. I learned them on the sports fields, especially when squaring off against arch rival New Trier, for whom I harbor not especially warm and fuzzy feelings to this day. When I was a student here, there wasn't always harmony in the hallways. Fights broke out from time to time. I myself got into some heated standoffs over the years. But I also learned in my time here how to stand up for the causes that I believed in, how to call out injustice when I saw it. I suspect, I hope, that many of you will be graduating with equally thick skin. I expect you to put it to good use. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sofia Garcia. I'm currently a junior, as well as Vice President of Latinx Quest. Mr. Steve Guilford, class of 1970, clearly remembers the crowded halls of going to school with 5,000 students. When ETHS was split up into 4 different schools within our one big building, in the midst of the chaos, you'd find Mr. Steve Guilford. During Steve's time as a student at ETHS, he was on the swim team, tennis team, and participated in the student government. Many of his interests from high school went on to lead him on his important career path. He earned his bachelor's degree from Dartmouth in 1974 and a JD and master's in public policy at Duke in 1978. After college, Steve went on to practice law as a senior partner in the Litigation Dispute Resolution Department in Chicago, served on the District 202 Board of Education, president of Metropolitan Family Services, as well as serving on the Board of Education for the state of Illinois. Steve heavily recalls the modular system, also known as mods, when class periods were split up into 20 different periods, and said sometimes I didn't even know where to go or what class I had. He also recalls meeting his wife Anne his freshman year of high school. Steve heavily recalls the modular system. Steve retells his high school career as the only place in Evanston that everyone comes together and embraces diversity. Steve's 3 children all attended Evanston Township High School. He also recalled his son, Zach Guilford's speech at the 2015 ETHS graduation as an example for the love he and his family holds for Evanston. Please help me welcome Mr. Steve Guilford.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a special pleasure for me, since Evanston, and particularly this high school, has been such an important part of my life. Mr. Futratsky told me I have exactly 3, maybe 4 minutes to thank you for this award and tell a bunch of hardened ETHS seniors something useful and inspiring. My wife, of course, who's sitting up in the front, said to emphasize that this is where I met her, and I hate to say this, 50 years ago in a study hall on the first floor of Beardsley School in N112. In her view, nothing could possibly be more important than that. The fact of the matter is that the most important thing about ETHS, in addition to meeting my wife and in helping to raise all 3 of my children, is that ETH is a central part of everyone in my family and who we are today. ETHS has great teachers who know how to teach us to think and to stand up for ourselves. I have the luxury as vice chair of the Illinois State Board of Ed to see a lot of schools all over the state and to meet a lot of teachers. And the teachers and resources here at Evanston are among the very best. ETHS teachers are constantly looking for that one thing in every one of us that will excite us enough to just stop hanging out. I was going to say, and playing with our cell phones and computers, but we didn't have any of those things when I was here. Whatever it is we're doing, we're not supposed to. The teachers here have an unrivaled commitment to get us focused and excited about thinking and learning. ETHS teaches us how to get along in a diverse and complicated world. I work with businesses around the world, and everyone is looking for people who know how to get along with others and how to respect and learn from diverse friends and colleagues. ETHS has always been a paradigm for this kind of learning. So no matter whether you think about it or not, or you believe it's happening or not, you come out of here with a set of experiences that are just part of you, that prepare you for the diverse and complicated world that we live in. ETHS gives you swagger. No matter the situation, you know that you went to the best high schools anywhere and can do just about anything. When I was here, we were the biggest. We had 5,000 students in the school. We were the first. We had the first class to graduate from the enormous school with 4 buildings within a school. Finding our way around school and getting from one end to the other was enough to make us confident we could navigate anything and find our way pretty much anywhere. We were the best. We beat New Trier over and over again, and we won state championships. I wasn't a football hero. You could tell by the size of me. And I wasn't first in my class. But I knew that we were part of something special and that had prepared us for the world ahead of us. ETHS teaches you that everyone can make a difference. When I was at ETHS, I ran for president of my class, and I lost to my locker partner. It was pretty ugly, and I felt pretty bad. But I became one of the first members of a new school policy committee that was a small group representing each of the new schools. I found out that there's a lot of ways to make a difference. Today, I'm not governor or president, and I'm not very famous, but I have had the honor of serving as a board member of ETHS, of the Evanston YMCA, and of the Illinois State Board of Education. Each of those roles has allowed me to make a difference. There are thousands of charities and local government organizations that may not be in the internet headlines every day, but make a huge difference to all of us, and you can make a difference there too. All of these are critical parts of who I am today. I work in a great international law firm that treasures excellence. I've handled cases for big companies, but I have a pro bono practice that has allowed me to help people who feel discriminated against or who have troubles. I sit on the State Board of Ed and want every student in the state to get the kind of education you get here at Evanston High School. This award today is an affirmation for me that I have used some of the things that I learned here well. I look forward to learning how each of you uses them as you go forward as well, too. Thank you.
Great. Hello, my name is Lauren Poyser, and I'm this year's senior class senator. I've had the pleasure to speak with our next distinguished alumni, Tanika Island, who makes a career out of eliminating injustices within the classroom and improving student-to-teacher relations. She currently directs the Urban Teacher Education Program at the University of Chicago, helping educators develop a progressive, conscious approach to the rigors of teaching, focusing primarily on how race, class, and culture impacts a student's learning environment. Prior to embarking on her role at the University of Chicago, Ms. Island has made great strides in Evanston. She is an exemplary product of our community. During her time at ETHS, she was the captain of the Pom Kids team and was deeply involved in our school's spirited culture. Her love for Evanston did not stop there. She expressed that one of her greatest achievements is the changes she made as principal at King Laboratory School in Evanston. There, she was able to shift the school and teaching culture into a more inclusive environment by helping faculty understand how their belief system impacts the way they teach students. It is not to go unsaid that her passion for education came from both her mother, being an educator for 35 years to mostly minority students, and the strong teaching she experienced at Evanston Township. When asked what she would advise her high school self, she simply responded with this: embrace and cultivate the gifts and talents that you have, even if they aren't traditionally applauded. Certainly, we can all agree that she followed through with that advice. Last but not least, let's give Ms. Island a warm Wildcat welcome.
Give you a hug. Hi. Feels good to be home. Really good to be home. Thank you. It's wonderful to spend some time here with you today. I mean, like any teacher, I learn so much from my students. But with age comes wisdom, so I'd like to share a few thoughts of my own with you and really talk to you about you. I clearly hope that none of you here has experienced or witnessed any bullying or taunting as a result of last month's election. But you probably know that there have been many reports of harassment and worse against LGBTQ students, students with physical disabilities, students of color. So how do we deal with this? How do we assert our unity as Americans who respect differences and believe that diversity makes us a dynamic and innovative people? Here are 3 ideas. Number 1, understand that everyone, including people from different backgrounds and those holding opinions or beliefs that are different from yours, has good within them. It is up to you to find that good. If they voice opinions that are hurtful or distressing, try to figure out where they're coming from. Does this person or the person's family feel scared or threatened? Do they lack critical knowledge? Are they familiar with people outside of their culture or unfamiliar? Once you understand another person's point of view, it becomes easier to connect around you and share your basic humanity from there to combat prejudice. Number 2, remember that you have a voice and a role to play in American democracy. I hear too many people saying that they give up. I wanted to give up too. Do not give up. I realize that you can't vote yet, but you will be able to very soon. And in the meantime, you can learn how our government works and find out how regular citizens participate in social movements. Even if you're not a joiner, remember that all of your actions affect those around you. You have agency, and that agency is power. Find your power, feel it, and use it to make a difference. 3, figure out what you want fixed in our country. Is it climate change, the individual rights under the law, income equality, prison and sentencing reform? Identify the issue you're passionate about, but don't stop there. Learn about proposed solutions to that problem and get a sense of what you really want to push forward. And it's not just the what, it's the how. Would you like to be involved in community organizing, what's known as grassroots or bottom-up approach? Or are you interested in grass tops or top-down work at the policy or institutional level? Most change movements combine both. So whichever is most appealing to you, know that there is a place for you. Young people today, as a group, you are smarter, more independent, and more accepting of diversity than any generation in history. And thank goodness for that. You are the future, so please make the future your own. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joe Birchie, and today I have the privilege of introducing to you one of this year's distinguished alumni, and our city's now retired Fire Chief, Greg Kleiber. It is not every day that we get to appreciate someone who literally lives in the heat of the moment. Mr. Kleiber served the City of Evanston's fire department for over 30 years and has been our city's fire chief since 2010. During his time at ETHS, Mr. Kleiber was involved in activities including being a part of the Yamo crew, playing soccer, and playing baseball for all 4 years. Looking back at his time at ETHS, some of his fondest memories include his postseason baseball games his senior year, as well as hanging around the senior lounge, which has since become the hub where my friends and I spend some of our free time. As Mr. Kleiber prepared for life after ETHS, he held on to values he developed during his time here, such as appreciation for diversity, acceptance of others, and what it means to be a leader. These values led him into public service, and he studied cardiac rehabilitation at the University of Illinois. Because a friend convinced him to take the firefighting exam, he took the test and scored exceptionally well, and from there quickly moved up the ladder. He moved up the ranks of the Evanston Fire Department and eventually was chosen to be our city's fire chief. Mr. Kleiber's 30 years of service to the city of Evanston also include working on the District 65 school board and being heavily involved volunteering as a part of the Evanston Baseball and Softball Association. His time devoted to improving the city of Evanston has made us proud to award him the title of being a distinguished alum. When I asked Mr. Kleiber if he had any advice for our senior class, he said, "Don't be afraid of uncertainty at this point in your life. Embrace uncertainty with a strong work ethic and an open mind, and you'll be successful at whatever you choose to do or to be. It is this attitude of hard work, dedication, and love for serving others that has made him the highest standard of what it means to be a Wild Kid."
Good morning, everybody. Class of 2017, it's a great day to be a Wild Kid. Last time I walked on this stage, I was handed a diploma, so it's great to be back here 38 years later. I want to thank the Distinguished Alumni Committee for this honor. I'm truly overwhelmed to receive this recognition and be in such great company, past and present. Today I want to talk about what this institution meant to me growing up, what it means to me now, and how it impacted my life. I have so many wonderful memories about my time here at this high school. I was an average student academically. My GPA ended up in the middle of a 1,000-plus graduating class, hardly what one would call distinguished. I had more than one teacher tell me, if you only applied yourself more. Have anybody heard that? My academic, social, and athletic experiences here over 38 years ago are with me to this day. ETHS was and is a microcosm of our society at large. Having been exposed to students and teachers from different races, ethnicities, religions, perspectives, better prepared me for the University of Illinois, Northeastern Illinois University, where I obtained my master's, and later throughout my career with the Evanston Fire Department. ETHS instilled in me a sense of social justice and profound desire to give back to my community, which is reflected in my service as a volunteer for several organizations, a speed skating coach, baseball, EBSA baseball coach and commissioner, and District 65 school board member. In 1984, a friend who was an Evanston firefighter encouraged me to take the upcoming firefighter test for the city of Evanston. Long story short, I placed well and was hired in March of 1985. I rose to the ranks of the Evanston Fire Department, was promoted to fire captain, division chief, deputy chief, and then finally chief in 2010, where I was at the helm of a 110-member organization and in charge of a $15 million budget. During one of my interviews for chief, I was asked, "Why do you want to become a fire chief?" And my response was, I didn't want to just become a fire chief. I wanted to become a fire chief for the city of Evanston. I had no desire to lead another department or to serve another community. I can tell you that my time here at ETHS impacted my tenure as fire chief. One of my goals was to increase minority hiring on our department so that our department better reflected the community that we serve. I place a particular emphasis on recruiting ETHS graduates who now receive 5 preference points on our firefighter test. I also wanted our department to be more engaged with the community. We started the Fire Explorer program, the Citizens Fire Academy, the Community CPR program, and the Evanston Police and Fire Foundation, all in the last 5 years. My greatest satisfaction, however, came when I was able to hire firefighter paramedics who were ETHS graduates. It was an incredible honor and privilege to serve the community where I lived as a youth, later raised my family, and continue to reside. After 32 years, I recently retired from the Evanston Fire Department and now work for Northwestern University as their Director of Emergency Management. My responsibilities there include planning, preparing, mitigating, responding, and recovering from natural and man-made disasters. My experiences here had such a profound impact on my life that I wanted my 3 children to experience the same thing. 21 years ago, my wife Nancy and I and our 3 young children lived in Arlington Heights. Sarah had just entered kindergarten. We started to have conversations about where best to raise our children. We spoke about the values that mattered most to us and what we wanted for our kids. These included tolerance, open-mindedness, inclusion, diversity, independence, creativity, personal responsibility, compassion, and empathy. That's what we find here at this school. A few months ago, a friend was considering moving his family to Evanston and had some questions about ETHS. Rather than give him my perspective, I thought I'd ask our kids to write some of what they experienced while attending school here. I want to share with you one comment that my daughter Sarah made. Quote, "I think Evanston is the most ideal place to attend high school. Not only is it academically rigorous, it prepares kids for the real world. When I got to college, I realized how unique my high school experience was and how much it shaped my worldview. More than 8 years later, I'm still best friends with the majority of my friends from Evanston." End quote. Well, 38 years later, ETHS is still shaping my worldview. What matters most in life are your family and friends. My experience here played a significant role in the lifelong friends I have today and where we chose to send our kids to school and raise our family. I love this community and I love this high school. I've dedicated my entire adult life to serving Evanston. Receiving this recognition means more to me than you'll ever know. I thank the Distinguished Alumni Award Committee for recognizing the value of community and public service and honoring me with this award. I thank you all very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Honor Allen, your student representative to the school board. As you have read in your programs, our final Distinguished Alumni Award winner, Lynn Twist, is the kind of person that many of us ETHS students hope we will be once we get out into the real world. She has dedicated her life to alleviating poverty and hunger, fighting for the environment, and working against injustice. Often, we don't ask someone with a job title like global visionary where they went to high school. No, she must have magically turned into an inspiring activist during her time at Stanford, right? Or her time working with Mother Teresa, or her time serving in refugee camps in Ethiopia. Well, according to Lynn, ETHS was actually the place where she became the person we are honoring today. When I talked to her, she told me that she has always been an activist, even though she didn't always know what that meant. And it was ETHS that helped her shape that activism. She told me that the civics class she took here opened her eyes to social injustice, slavery, and indigenous oppression. For her, these lessons were a wake-up that inspired her to fight for justice. She was also president of East Hall, because the school used to be divided up into 4 halls, and that position prepared her for running an organization. Her list of activities goes on for a while. She was president of Girls Club, a female empowerment group, part of PEP Club, which was a group of students that went to every ETHS sports event. She was on a women's baseball team, in every musical ETHS put on during her time here, and she was homecoming queen. Yeah. Ms. Twist took advantage of every opportunity the school had to offer, and for her, the biggest one was the opportunity to meet people. A very people-oriented person, Lynn said that ETHS gave her a huge range of people to experience and know. It is amazing to see what kind of inspiration ETHS can give students when we celebrate our diversity. Yes, Stanford and the rest of Lynn's life probably also helped her become the activist she is today, but she built that foundation here at ETHS. Her activism was fostered in her classes, her activities, and every interaction she had with another student in the building. She is proof that Wildkits are meant to do big things, because we come from a very big, very special place. So today, I'm happy to introduce one of our most inspiring Wildkits, Lynn Twist.
Hi there. It is so awesome to be back here. I live in San Francisco. I've been living in San Francisco for 47 years. I graduated from ETHS in '63. That's 53 years ago. I haven't been back here very much, and it's just incredible to stand here and look at you. And I'm so grateful to the Alumni Association for this award. It just means a great deal to me. And I just want to say a couple things, because I know I'm the last speaker. You guys are so lucky that you're in this school. And you really realize that when you leave here. I've been living in California for a long, long time. My granddaughter is a senior. She's class of 2017 in California, in San Francisco, graduating from her school, which is a wonderful school. But when I come back here and stand here and look at you, I realized this should be called Heavenston instead of Evanston. Really, I'm not kidding. Because the diversity, the solid values, the excellence of this school, this is, when I was here, it was #1 in the nation, this school, and I think it still is. And for that to be true for more than 50 years shows the stability and the depth of the education that's available here, which I received and you're receiving. And to realize how lucky you are, I just want you to know that. It launched me on what I call living a committed life. And by that I mean I'm governed by the highest commitments I have rather than my desires or wants. And it's led me all over this planet to work with Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, people I never would have imagined I would ever even know. And out of those privileged encounters, I can trace it all the way back to here, where I had the opportunity, the privilege, the good fortune to go to this high school. I just want to say I was termed an activist. I call myself a pro-activist, an activist for rather than against, an activist standing for a new future, knowing what stands in our way, not afraid of the obstacles that need to be dismantled and addressing them, but actually standing in the vision that I have for the world, an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just human presence on this planet. And when I look out at you, I know that you are something that I just want to articulate. I studied with Buckminster Fuller. You probably don't even know who he was, but he was a really great teacher for me. Not a teacher here, but a teacher of life at the end of the 20th century. He's no longer living, but he said something to me about my own children at a dinner that we had at our home. And we affectionately called him Bucky Fuller. Look him up. You'll be astounded by this guy. He told me, he said, your children are your elders in universe time. They've come into a more complete, more evolved universe than you can ever understand except through their eyes. And even though I'm 53 years older than you are, I know that you are my elders in universe time, that you're more evolved, more awake, more aware than my generation was, and you have the opportunity to live the most meaningful lives any generation of humankind has ever lived. Good luck to you, class of 2017. Use your life to make a difference, and thank you for being part of ETHS, my alma mater.
Would you please join me and stand and thank all of our honorees? Thank you. We have a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask that maybe the deans and counselors can grab some of the microphones from Mr. Jacobson in the back. We will have time for a few questions and answers, so have a seat. The bell won't ring for about 12 minutes, so we've got a little time. I do want to point out that we have several other distinguished alumni winners who are here, joined us today. Cleo Alexander is over here, and Don Michelin is in the back. Would you welcome them today? So I see some of the members of the committee besides the student representatives. Bruce Romaine is down front. Janet Webb is in the back. Thank you for taking the time to be with us and for all of your work on our committee. And Ann Sills is a representative of our school board and is over here in the front, so please welcome her too. I'm going to start with a question for our honorees and ask if any of them will come up. While you guys are thinking of a question, I wonder if there is any particular class or out-of-class event that you remember from your days in high school that may have helped shape what you're doing today. Anybody? One per Tanika?
For me, it was a public speaking class. I was deathly afraid of public speaking and still am not the most comfortable with it, but the public speaking class that I had here at ETHS definitely changed my life. Valerie Peters, I believe was her name, was my speaking teacher, and it was just transformational in terms of helping me feel comfortable in front of people and helping me find my voice and gain clarity about what I wanted to say. So public speaking was transformational for me.
I remember, I think it was called Western Civilization or Civics or something like that, by the teacher was Dr. Kestenbaum. I will never forget him. And I graduated in 1963 when President Kennedy was our new president and had declared we would land on the moon. We had an era of incredible hope and possibility. And then my freshman year at Stanford, he was assassinated. And then within the next 5 years, 4 of our leaders were assassinated: Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, and President Kennedy. And what I learned in Dr. Kestenbaum's class was that we could change the world. And even though our generation, my generation, living in the 60s during the Vietnam War, when a lot of people were going off to war who didn't want to, we learned how to deal with the adversity and the difficulty that came right after high school. And we became, I think, a generation that really changed things. And I would say that Dr. Kestenbaum taught us how to do that because he taught us history in a way that we learned how you could make a difference with your life.
I just want to share a quick memory that I had from my baseball years here. It's not a particularly good memory, but I think it taught me a life lesson, and that is to control your temper, which I had a problem with for a couple of baseball games. I was a pretty good fielding second baseman. However, my bat wasn't very good. So my coach, Coach McGonigal, would typically DH for me, which I wasn't too happy about. So on the rare games that I got to hit against like the Waukegan Easts or some teams like that, I would inevitably get kicked out of the game for throwing my bat or my helmet or say something I shouldn't say based on what I perceived as an incompetent call by an umpire. So after the third game that I was ejected from, Coach McGonigal called me into his office and brought my dad in and said, "Listen, I've been coaching for, 30 years at that point." He said, "I've never had a player get kicked out of 3 games in one season." And I didn't feel very good about it, obviously. And one of the good things about that meeting was my dad didn't stand up and support me. He supported the coach. And it taught me a lesson that you have to respect authority sometimes and their viewpoints and what they are, where they're coming from, and acknowledge the fact that sometimes you're not exhibiting behavior that you should be, and try to learn from it. Thank you.
See if we have any questions out in the audience. Dean Bunbury's over here with a microphone if somebody has a question. Oh, she's found somebody. Want to stand up? Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Shreen Marzuki, and my question is, what has been the hardest truth you've encountered in your experience? So I can repeat that. What has been your hardest truth you've encountered in your experience?
Okay, what was your hardest
Truth
that
you've encountered
that
in
you've
your
encountered?
experience?
Most difficult truth you've encountered? Anybody? Oh, come on, Steve. It is. Come on, you've handled worse. I don't think we've ever stumped a panel before, but this may be the day that we have. Anybody? It may be difficult to, I can tell you that it's very difficult to stand up here in front of a group like this class and keep your poise up on this stage. Do we have any other questions? Steve's going to give us an answer.
I think the hardest truth that you encounter when you leave here is not everybody is like the people are here. You go out and you find out that there's a lot of places that, have never met different kinds of people, and that I go to schools and they don't have the opportunities and things that we have here. So I think one of the things that you really have to be ready for is that when you go out in life, people will not be as tolerant and has experienced with diversity and has experienced with other kinds of people and have the resources and support and background that you're so used to here today. It's just part of who you are in this high school, and it just isn't the same everywhere.
I've got a question for Ms. Twist in particular, over here.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had the opportunity to work with Nelson Mandela and with Mother Teresa. Out of all those philanthropists and all the wonderful people you had the opportunity to work with, which one do you think has influenced you the most?
Lynn, the question is, which of the worldwide figures that you've encountered had the most influence on you?
Gosh, that's I don't know if I can answer that with one person, because all of them obviously have influenced all of us. But I worked for years with Mother Teresa, and she's the real deal, the real deal. And she taught me about fundraising. Nobody thinks about her as a fundraiser, but she didn't start her order until she was 46 years old. She died when she was 88. Between when she became a nun at 18 until age 46, she was a teacher in a high school like here. And she was an unremarkable teacher. She became the principal, but she was still an unremarkable teacher in a very elite girls' school in Calcutta. And she had her calling on a train to Darjeeling for going to a curriculum conference. I think the teachers here can relate to that. And it took her 2 years to start her order, and she started in a really short time, 42 years, 506 missions in 103 countries. And that took money. She raised millions and millions and millions of dollars, and I saw her do it. I mean, if Mother Teresa asked you for money, you're not going to say no, so that's part of it. but I really understood the depth of what it means to be committed and how when you're really committed, nothing will stop you. Nothing will stop you. And she taught me that because I spent the most time with her of the great people that I mentioned. I thank you.
Question over here.
Hi, my name is Allison, and a lot of times you hear about the Evanston bubble where you see liberally minded people surrounded with you. But how did you deal with the intolerance you saw once you left this Evanston bubble?
The question is, we have been said we live sometimes in a bubble, an Evanston bubble, and how have you dealt with and what were your reactions to seeing intolerance after you've left the bubble?
Well, as a reporter who's been in the, interviewing people from all different walks of life for the last 20 years, I can tell you that I do think that Evanston can feel like a bubble once you leave and go on first, to college or into the workforce. And I have, in the course of my work, traveled the country and encountered a variety of people from a variety of backgrounds. And I think it's, while there are a lot of wonderful values and lessons and characteristics that you pick up in your time at Evanston, I think it's also really important to know that the larger world is not a bubble. And I think that what we've learned from this last presidential election is that there are a variety of segments in this country. Not everybody's seeing eye to eye. And I would actually encourage you to not stay in this bubble. And when when you go off to college and when you go into the workplace, that you actually are really open to hearing other people's perspectives, because I think the more that you, becoming a good listener and actually being open and perceptive to other perceptions, to other people's points of view is really important and is something that's going to actually ultimately strengthen your beliefs and your values and give you an opportunity to share those beliefs and values with other people. So I would say don't stay in the bubble and actually, get out there and mix it up as much as you can.
If you could be an ETHS student again for a day, what class would you sit in, or what would you try to experience?
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you.
If you could be an ETHS student again for a day, what class would you sit in, or what would you try to experience?
If you were an ETHS student for a day, what class would you want to go to? What sort of things would you like to do? Who would you want to interact with? Maybe we'll ask them each to come up and give us a quick answer, and then we'll be coming towards the end of our time.
This probably isn't as inspiring as you might expect, but I'd like to go to Chem Phys class again. When I went here, my kids still laugh at me because I used something called a slide rule that most of you can't even imagine, which was this gizmo that you'd move back and forth when it allowed you to multiply. And it would be really interesting to do it with a computer and actually be able to do all these problems about 10 million times faster. So that's what I'd like to do for a day.
I'm interested in attending an English class. I love literacy, so I hope the canon has shifted a bit. So I want to see what you're reading right now and how you're thinking about it and just how you're processing. So interested in English.
Quickly, if I was back here and had the option or opportunity to take another class, which I didn't take when I was here, was a civics class or political science. If you don't know how this government works, both state and federal, or how it doesn't work, you're going to have a hard time. You have to be an educated voter. You have to know how this government works. So what I'm asking all of you to do when you leave here and you graduate, become an educated consumer, become an educated voter. Thank you.
I think I'd take an environmental class about ecology or the environment. Because we didn't even have that when I was here. Nobody was thinking about that. That was like that didn't even exist. The word ecology, I don't even think it existed. So, and I now work in the Amazon with indigenous people to preserve the Amazon. So I would go straight to whatever environmental classes you have here now and be thrilled that you have them.
I guess that if I could go back and take one more class here, it would be Spanish, because I studied French, and I can safely say that I've used no French in the course of my career, and have had a million times where I just wish I could speak Spanish. So, and then also going back to, there was the question about a favorite memory here, and I was just sitting up here and giving it some more thought. And I don't know, Alex and I were talking about this, I think it may still be the case, but when I was in school here in the early 1990s, there would, on occasion, in the hallways in the morning, they would pump the Louis Armstrong "What a Wonderful World" song over the speaker, which was always a nice, sometimes soothing song to hear, and something that I still listen to and always think of Evanston. So.
I think that song was the Friday song, a tradition we still have. Let me thank you for being a great audience. I look forward to working with you as alumni, and Dr. Witherspoon will end our program.
They are distinguished alums. Thank you very, very much.